basics really well, and then to do this every day. So you integrate it into your life, not as something special or mystical, but every day I eat, every day I sleep, every day I wear clothes, and every day I quiet my mind. I would encourage you to find a place to do that. Here is wonderful. There's a time to sit twice a day. What are the times? So if you wanted a place to sit, you didn't have a place you could set up in your apartment or your home, you could come here in the morning and sit from 6:15 to 7:15, 5:15? 5:15 to 6:15. So 6:15 to 7:15 in the morning. Like if you're going on BART or something, come sit, then jump on BART and go wherever you go. Then 5:15 and 6:15 in the evening at the close of day. Traditionally, in many monasteries, this was the rhythm. And it's obvious reasons for it. One, the air and the energy in the morning is very clear and calm. So if you wake up and you haven't been too busy, and you don't turn on the radio or check your whatever's, tweet, Facebook, iPad, and whatnot, you're just sort of really calm, and you getting to the sitting position, your mind and nature are really much more conducive to quietness and listening. So it's a really good time in the morning to do that. And then the same is true, you go through the day and it's like you've vacuumed up all the things, and it's a good time to then unwind. So instead of going to happy hour or something like that, you come here at 5:15, 6:15, and you unwind or you cleanse out again. And it matches the movements of nature, the rising of the sun and the setting of the sun. So it's a nice rhythm there. Exception being if you're in Beijing. Right now you don't know when the sun rises or sets. Some of you have been following the news. One of my students, somebody sent me some pictures today. Oh, that was you, Ken, right? Where are they from? The Atlantic magazine. They're stunning photos of contemporary society in Beijing, where everybody's wearing masks because the air pollution is so horrendous that it's unhealthy to breathe. I'm sorry, think of that. Unhealthy to breathe. So they're coming up with all sorts of devices to correct this other than the root one, which is major human pollution. So they wear the mask. Somebody's invented a bicycle with an air purification device in the back. So as you pedal, it generates electricity and has a little thing on the back that sucks in and cleanses air. And then you put on the pilots. He's adapted a jet pilot's mask with a helmet that runs from there to the back of the bike. No, this is real. And then while you're riding the bike, you can have clean air. Now, the next thing they're doing, and I thought this was really absurd. I digress a little here because it's interesting about how we create our environments, which is why we meditate, is to observe how we're creating our environments, both personal, social, and in the natural world. So meditation is a real tool for observing how we're creating our world, inner, relational, and the natural world. So if you want to change the world, you can start with the most powerful places, the center of it, the root, it's called bun, and that's one's own mind. So that pollution in Beijing just didn't come from outer space. It came from human activity, and that human activity came from commitments, decisions, intentions that then manifest as the return of this. So, you're getting into real basic stuff here. To try to fix it with bicycles that generate air is one way. Putting on the mask is yet. The best one I heard, though, was bottled air or canned air. Now, I can remember back in the 70s when Han Shan and I first started out our bowing pilgrimage, I remember we bowed past a Safeway, and they had a machine outside that said, buy water, 5 cents. And I just started laughing. I thought this was the funniest thing I ever heard. I came from the Midwest. Buy water? Water is just something that's there. It comes out of the tap, you drink it. Why? Is it gotten to the point you have to buy the water? And back then I thought, this is an idea that's not going to catch on. This is really stupid. But now it's huge, right? So I had a friend of mine who said, pretty soon they'll be selling air. And I thought, oh God, come on, this is absurd. Well, now they are. In Beijing, there's a very bright entrepreneur who has come up with a way to put air in cans, just like soda pop. A little bigger than soda pop cans. Now, I'm not sure how this all works yet. But he's bottled the air and he's selling it. Well, first for a week he gave it away to sort of encourage people. And now he's selling it. I don't think so. It could be the beginning. You could buy, it might be a satire, but I see it coming. You already have people carrying around, because they smoke too much, they carry around oxygen tanks. It's just a question of time before this starts to evolve. Anyway, one was called PreIndustrial Taiwan. That's one flavor. Pristine Tibet was another flavor. Let's hope it's satire. Anyhow, when you meditate in the morning without the canned air, things are quieter and cleaner, and things that haven't been stirred up. You feel this if you travel. When we were monks, we would travel in Asia, especially in the rural areas. Before all the wagons and the carts and the tractors and everything get going, from the night, the air is really calm and still, especially along rivers and things like that. So that's why it's a good time to meditate in the morning. So any questions on time? Place? Find a space in your house or your room that you can set aside, a space to yourself that you can sit in every day, that's quiet, that's clean. You maybe have a little altar that you have with an image or some incense. Lighting a stick of incense is symbolic of sort of clearing the air inside and outside and creating a sort of sense of purity and calm. You can have a candle, all kinds of things, but try to keep it regular and come back to it and see it as this place where you are alone with your own mind for X amount of time every day, and you're getting to know yourself in a really deep way. This is probably, I would say, from my own experience, one of the most worthwhile things that you can do. Okay, so tonight, just talk about the physical aspects of the sitting meditation, the posture and what to do, and then next week we'll go into the breathing. So, first thing is, and in no particular order, sit straight. Have the spine be straight up. So don't do this. Don't hunch over. Bring your spine up and don't arch back. Don't invert the spine. The ears line up with the shoulders and the shoulders line up with the hips. So if you think of a straight plane on the side, one of the texts say the spine is like coins stacked up on top of each other, perfectly straight and in alignment. The legs then can be put into basically three positions, a half lotus, a full lotus, or just cross-legged. So let's see for some demonstrations. What are you doing? Huh? You're doing half. So just turn around so somebody can see this is the half lotus position. And I believe the image on the wall in the back is half lotus too. So one leg goes on the other thigh, the other one goes underneath. Now the full lotus position, is anybody here sitting in full lotus now? Nobody? Jason, are you sitting in full lotus?
No, I'm sitting half lotus.
You're sitting in half lotus. What, you're sitting in full lotus? What do you mean? Full lotus with weeds, or just straight full lotus? Or so show a full lotus then. Oh, you have to turn around. Nobody, unless people have spiritual penetrations, they can't see your legs. No, turn. Rotate. Well, move your hands so they can see your legs, right? So usually what happens is the left leg goes on top of the right thigh, and the right leg goes on top of the left thigh. Once again, you sit with your legs, you bring the left leg up to the right thigh and bring it over so that the foot is really on the thigh. And then you bring the right one up to the left. Okay, now normally this takes a little while to get used to. Some people are just naturally limber in this way and they do that. This is considered to be the Vajrasana, it's called. It's the most optimal yogic posture for this circulation of energy or prana or chi. So half lotus, full lotus, or cross leg. Anybody's sitting cross leg? I'm sitting cross leg. You're sitting cross leg. So cross leg is just cross leg. The reason I sit cross leg is because I've got two artificial hips. So that if I sat half or full lotus, they would leave me. So I used to sit, and I didn't get the hips from sitting, by the way. So just to dissuade, some people say, oh, he sat in full lotus and now he ruined his hips. No, that's not the case. It's just circumstantial and genetics. So I said cross-leg. But I must say, because I spent years in half and full lotus, once you have that foundation, even if you sit in half lotus or you sit cross-leg, you know what to do internally. You've got the gong fu. That's why I say start when you're young. Because if you start when you're young and you build the foundation and the pathways are familiar, you routinize this in a way, after a while, when things don't work, you can sit in a chair and still generate that energy. So this is something to start as young as you can and just see it as an investment for the rest of your life. It's really good this way. So don't wait till you're old to start this and think, well, when I retire and get my Social Security, then I'm going to meditate. Good luck. Start early. So the legs are in that lotus position. Okay, then the hands, the left hand's on the bottom, right hand's on the top. Just sitting in your lap, let your right behind your wrist forearms rest on your thighs. So don't hold them up like this. Just let them rest. When you let them rest, then your shoulders and upper arms can relax and just hang very naturally. So you don't want to have any tension where you're pinching up like this. So for a start, just pinch up. Everybody just pinch up like this and, squeeze it and then let it go. Now that letting it go is how you want to feel all the time. So by letting the arms rest here, left hand on the bottom, right hand on top, thumbs just gently touching, just closing off a circuit. Okay, so we've gone through the back, the legs, the hands, the arms. The jaw is relaxed. Don't clench your teeth. So let your jaw relax. The teeth are safely separate. They're not actually touching. So the jaw is relaxed, but the mouth is closed. You're always breathing through the nose. Next week we'll go into the breathing more. The tongue, you gently curl the tongue just a little bit to touch right behind the front teeth, which is called the hard palate. So hard palate, soft palate. Is that right, Kevin? You're a dentist. Right, okay. Just checking with the dentist here to make sure we get it right. So the hard palate's the one that's closest to your teeth. The soft palate, if you bring your tongue back, all of a sudden you'll feel an arch up. That's the soft palate. So you want the tongue to curl and gently touch on the hard palate. Not pressure, not forced. Just gently curl and let it rest there. And you keep it there. You do this also when you're doing other exercises, spiritual exercises like Tai Chi. This is what you do too. It closes off a meridian that goes around the front and the back. So by closing that meridian, you recirculate energy in a very profound way. Okay? The head, as I said, the ears line up, and then the head just gently tips forward a little bit. It's not straight like this, nor is it down like that, but just gently tip forward a wee bit. And now it's most important. The eyes are not completely shut in this type of sitting meditation. They're slightly open. So if you let your eyes close, and then as if raising a shade maybe a fifth of the way up, you let them slightly open a little bit. Not that you can see anything very clearly, but you can still see light. You have a general sense of the outside. That's where you want them. So the lids are not completely closed. If you look at really proper images, both sculpted and painting, and you look carefully, you'll notice that the eyes of the Buddha or the Bodhisattva or the teacher are not completely closed. Okay, and there's a reason for this. We'll get into this on the third part of what's happening in the mind when you meditate. But there's a reason for this, and there's a connection between mind, body, and breathing, and feelings and emotions and thoughts. So what we're doing is we're getting the three to work so as to be properly aligned. If the eyes closed, you'll enter a certain state with your mind. If they're too open, you will also get into a different state. So there's a certain awareness there, but not completely closed. And then it says the eyes look off the nose at that 45-degree angle down, and they stay focused down, not on anything in particular, just looking down at that 45-degree angle. And so here's now the beginning of the key. It says the eyes regard the nose regards the mouth regards the heart, which is down here. So this is an exercise. Obviously, your nose can't look at your mouth, okay? So it's a sort of metaphor, but it's also a exercise to bring your focus of concentration down here to your center. So the key of this meditation technique, when it says the eyes look off the nose, regard the nose to the mouth, you're bringing your energy and your awareness and your concentration, your attention, inward and down. And this area is called the square inch. It's one expression for it. It's about 2 inches below the navel and 2 inches inside. So this is where the focus of your attention, this is where the mind centers. And this is, in fact, considered the center of the mind. Okay? So this is different. It's not the brain. You're not thinking when you're doing this meditation, but you're letting your awareness and concentration and attention drop down to that place. Now, for this to work, and this is very important, your body should be very natural and relaxed. So you cross the legs, you get everything set, and then just before you really start to sit, you check and make sure that every part of your body has no tension. There's nothing held or tight. It's like flowing silk. It's very, very soft. One of my teachers said it's like picking up a sleeping baby. Any of you ever picked up a sleeping baby? I mean, before you wake it up and it cries and gets all upset. You know that when you pick up a sleeping baby, or you've had a sleeping baby, any of you held a sleeping baby? Like really laid back. Sleeping babies are really laid back. It's almost like they're totally limp. So this is the feeling you want to have with your body. Every muscle, tendon, ligament, all the sinews, all the arteries and capillaries, no obstruction. Everything's just completely relaxed and natural. And to do this most effectively, you have to then let go of this area, the tummy, the belly, the diaphragm, and down to the abdomen. Make it very soft and relaxed. Do not use any effort to hold that. Okay? Now, you got loose-fitting clothes, you got blankets and things like this. If you don't look good, nobody's noticing. I mean, you're taught to hold that in, right? Don't. Let it go. Relax. As soon as you relax this, completely relax, the rest of your body will also relax. Okay? So fear, anxiety, tension, movement starts here and radiates to the rest of the body. So if you have tension in your shoulders and necks, you go here and you can reduce it and eliminate it. So this is very, very relaxed and soft. And then when that's relaxed and soft, then the breathing, which will come next week, will also then correspondingly be unobstructed and flow freely because it's not being forced. Now, just in doing this, if you do it correctly, if you just sit here and you do everything I said with the legs, the back, the shoulders, the arms, the tongue, and then that very, very last moment of just letting everything soften and relax and all your attention come down to there. Sometimes immediately, if you're pretty attuned, you'll start to feel changes in your circulation already just by doing that. Okay? So don't lean forward, don't lean backward, don't lean left, don't lean right. They say sit like a bell. Like that. Okay? Not a Christmas bell, a bing bong, back and forth, this kind of bell. Okay? And so these are the 4 deportments. You sit like a bell. You walk like a gentle breeze. You sleep like a bow. What's the 4th one? And you stand like a tree, like a pine tree. Okay? So this is the physical part of it, and it's very important. And go over this at the beginning with yourself. Just check it, do the kind of checklist to make sure it's okay, and then you're set. Questions on this? It's very simple, yes? Very, very old. We have images going back over close to 3,000 plus in terms of this being done by human beings for a very long, long time in this posture. Okay, no more questions on that. Everybody clear? How many people sit in full lotus? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many? What does that mean? How many people sit in full lotus? That means sometimes? Okay. How many people sit in half? Okay, cross leg. Not at all. Okay. Yeah, sometimes. So this, if you continue with this, you'll notice it becomes easier. Full lotus is something, I was convinced it wasn't for Americans. When I first started, I thought, no. American bodies don't do full lotus. That's for Indian and Asian bodies. They're born sitting in full lotus. But Americans sit on chairs, and and my body's not. But actually, with a certain amount of practice, did you start in full lotus? And you practiced? And you're from China? No, you're from South Carolina or someplace weird. So if somebody from South Carolina can get to full lotus in X amount of time, anybody can. I'm from Wisconsin, I could get in full lotus. None of my relatives sit in full lotus, never did. No one on the farm sat in full lotus. If I did, they probably thought it was the strangest thing on earth, but you can do it. And by doing it, it's an exercise, you actually relax and limber up your body. You find that you can do it quite easily with practice. Don't force it, okay? But just gently move in that direction, and you'll find there's a lot of benefit from doing that. Okay, no questions. Now, when you're done sitting, I should emphasize this, get up slowly. Especially if you're practicing the lotus posture. Because if you're practicing the lotus posture and you don't have the baby's body, and you crank it in there because you got a real strong will, chances are you'll cut off the circulation in your legs. And then when I do hit the bell, bing, and you go uncross your legs and stand up right away, you're just going to fall over because your legs don't have the circulation back. After you get really skillful with this, your circulation won't go out of your legs when you're sitting. You won't lose your circulation. Okay? So rub them a little bit when you're done and so forth, and just practice. I would say if you can, minimum half an hour a day. Hour is best, once in the morning, once in the evening. But even 10 minutes, 15 minutes regularly is better than 5 days without and then 6 hours on the weekend. So keep it regular and constant. Okay, enough on that. Let's do some stuff on the text. And I was going to share something with you tonight. Let's look at this one passage we were talking last week. I wanted to clarify this a little bit and share with you a reading tonight. If you have the esoteric, the shortcuts, right. So that passage reads, do not dabble in the esoteric or seek for shortcuts. These lead nowhere. Even to talk about this practice, he says, more than I wish to do. the reason I want to bring this up is core to this teaching that I received from my teacher, that Han Shan is talking about, that is at the root of this particular tradition, is a very central idea that you have everything you need whole and complete within your being to work through all the difficulties and problems you encounter and to realize the fullness of your potential, what's called Shing, your nature. And this nature is considered to be the same as a Buddha's. In other words, human nature has within it the capacity for a full awakened understanding, for all the peace and happiness, and so on and so forth. This is it. This is the repository. And the only way to realize that, the only way to get those results, if you call them results, but they actually say the only way to return to that intrinsic nature is through cultivating this person, your body, your mind, your emotions, your feelings, working on this ground. And the emphasis is do not seek outside. Do not look outside for quick shortcuts to this. And do not look outside for somebody else to do it or to give it or bestow it or so on and so forth. That there's a famous line from the Avatamsaka Sutra, where was there ever a person with wisdom who got the knowledge and understanding of a Buddha without making a great resolve, a firm determination, and then the last line, walking the same path the Buddha walked. So the Buddha, you realize every Buddha or every awakened star is a human being. We're not talking about gods and removed beings. We're talking about human beings. This is talking about human capacity. And the Buddha, as a human being, fully realized that capacity through cultivating his own person. That's why the last stages, when he has his perfect enlightenment realization, comes with him sitting alone under a tree. I mean, you couldn't have anything more sort of autonomous or independent. You alone with your own mind and body in nature under this tree, no other supports, nothing else going on. Just looking at, confronting, and peeling back the layers of one's own consciousness till you get to the root. That's what's being described here. So this is the tradition that Han Shan is coming from as well. Now, that being said, we've worked back and forth on this translating the esoteric because the shortcuts we talked about last week, and we gave that passage from the Tao Te Ching about the great highway is straight and broad, but people take shortcuts. But this esoteric is a little more subtle, and I'm defining it as moving away from seeking and cultivating within to seeking something outside. That's how I'm defining it. And looking for that outside as some kind of crutch or some kind of aid or some kind of support or substitute for the inner work. In my teacher's training of us, although we did have elements that you might call esoteric in our training of 5 schools that we did, they were never a substitute for the inner work. The inner work was everything. His teaching to us were very direct on the inner work. Where are you right now with your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions? What are you desiring? What are you fearing? And so on and so forth. That was where the emphasis was. Was there aspects that had to do with what we would call the esoteric or sometimes called the secret school? Yes. Mantras, mudras, mandalas, devotions, rituals, chanting, that was all there. But it was never a substitute for that inner work. If anything, it was an extension of it. And my teacher's emphasis was when your person, when your character as a human being is solid, then these things you can take up in a natural way and they be efficacious and you use them to benefit and bestow, working with those realms, what we call secret because they're not obvious to us. So I'm trying to throw this out with one idea to say, yes, it exists within Buddhism. Yes, it's recognized that there are ghosts and spirits. It's called Tianlong Babu, right? How do you translate Tianlong Babu? Devas, dragons, Babu. Called the Eightfold Division. These are the realms of ghosts and spirits. Now, some people see these just as we see each other here. And they don't go, oh, wow, far out. It's just obvious that this is a realm of beings that exist. If you don't see them, it's kind of secret. It's hidden. But the meaning, the original meaning was there is this realm of beings, and they interact with all the other realms. This is part of the 10 realms of existence. And this is a matrix of life. Hells, animals, ghosts, spirits, people, and so on and so forth. This is the realm of reality. Okay, from our realm, we only know a little bit. But these other realms do exist, and they do have interactions with us. So as you're cultivating yourself, naturally, these become more obvious to you. Not because you're seeking them or you want to have this, but just because as your consciousness opens and expands, and as you get out of the myopic frame that we are in of me and mine, then naturally you see things that you didn't see before. Not because you're special, but because now you can see what was obscured to you by your own confusion before. It's like glasses. Doug, one of the teachers here, drives back and forth the same route all the time. And so he was driving this for years, and finally he went to have an eye exam for his license, and they said, you need glasses. I don't need glasses. I see just fine. So they made him go, and he got glasses, and he came out, and I remember the first time I was like, wow, he's like leaves on trees. Wow. And those signs that I just, they actually have words on them. It's like, and it wasn't like he had some spiritual powers. It was always there, but he couldn't see it because his eyes were not focused clear. It's the same way with this. So in one of the very important texts, one of the young monks asked the Buddha, I'd like to know my past lives. Because this is one of those knowledges that people associate with the mysterious or the esoteric. How can I do that? And he thought the Buddha would say, oh, I'll give you a special mantra, I'll give you a secret power tool, and the spiritual room. And the Buddha said, simply purify your mind. If you purify your mind, you will naturally see your past lives even if you don't want to. So the seeing of things at this realm, okay, comes from the purification of the mind, comes from the reducing of covetousness and avarice and longing and so forth. It comes from a clear mind. I want to stress this, it's really important. So it's a natural extension of our human faculties, unencumbered by greed, hatred, and ignorance. And so the important thing is, when it happens naturally, you don't put any special spin on it. This is the next thing that happens. Okay, do you come in tonight and say, oh, there's people here. Wow, far out. No, there's just people here. That's it. In the same way, oh, there's spirits and these kinds of things, so what? That's just the way it is. That's why they say, Ru Shi. It's just this way. They don't go wow. So as this happens, you have to be careful not to get attached to these things and think something special is going on. If they don't happen, don't think you're not making progress either. You see where I'm getting? So it's really important how you approach this. To deny that these things exist is to go to one extreme. But to get all excited and be longing for this, it's to go to the other. So my teacher said, as these things happen, if they do, see them as ordinary, nothing special. And then you'll be fine. And if they don't happen, fine. If it does happen, fine. Just see it as ordinary, nothing special. So, yes, there is an esoteric. Now, the dabbling in is the key here. What this is talking about is you're using it as a substitute for your own inner work. You're looking for some kind of external reliance to save you, or you're using it or wanting it because you want power yourself. Your wanting of power is the major impediment to awakening. So wanting anything, even wanting awakening, I really want to get enlightened, will keep you from getting enlightened. The wanting in itself obstructs the awakening. This seems counterintuitive, but you can see why awakening would be so wonderful, because it's not coming out of your desire and want and will, but it's coming naturally when you let go and return to your original state. Okay? So this is very important to understand why the esoteric exists, but why not to dabble in it. This is very prevalent today. You can still see all over the place enticements, inducements for getting into spiritual Eastern religion and philosophy on the basis that this will give you these kinds of occult powers and abilities and knowledges, extrasensory perceptions, and so on and so forth. Okay? So the text, the teachers are all very clear about this. Yes, it exists. If you approach it in the right way, everything's fine. If you don't, you will not only not make progress in your own path to enlightenment, but you'll get caught up in deviant states. And I've seen this happen. I've seen enough over the years I've been doing this where people who've come in intent on getting these powers or grabbing after these special occult kinds of things and completely losing their minds. I don't know how else to say it nicely. And it's because of the wanting, because of the craving. I mean, the closest example I give is the new movie out, The Hobbit, right? You all know The Hobbit. You don't know The Hobbit? Hobbit? Yeah, these little guys. Why are they able to go and take the ring back to Mordor? They're pure. And they're not just cute. They're pure. So they don't have malice or envy or wanting in their hearts, so they can carry it back. Now, there was one who did, and what happened to him? What's his name? Smeagol, who becomes Gollum, right? He once was a hobbit, but because he gave rise to lust for the ring, he was transformed. He got the ring, but the ring got him. And now he is lost. He has lost his brightness. He has lost his original nature. He's a deformed creature by his own wanting and craving, you see? I mean, so like even in mythology, we have images like this that give that message. So the things that you want end up corrupting you. That's a resolve. That's a resolve. A resolve is different. You might call it the aspiration. But aspiration is different than craving. So you have to translate this very carefully. The resolve for enlightenment, the aspiration for enlightenment, is the positive wish or resolve to reach your fullest capacity. Once you make it, that's it. Forget about it. Now you just do the work. But you don't keep saying, I want it, really want it badly. How come I'm not getting enlightened? I'm coming to the Berkeley Buddhist Monastery for a year and I'm still not enlightened. I want it. You know, that's not aspiration. That's greed and longing, and you're starting to get nervous and freak out. So once you make that deep resolve, then you relax and let go and do the work, and naturally you will arrive. But that's different than craving or desire or greed. Okay, so the language, and we have different words in English for these different states. You know, to translate this as wanting or desiring enlightenment is a bad translation. Okay? So I just point that out. This is really important. You start with a pure mind. I want to become the fullest human being I can. Get rid of all the things that cover me over. And then just do it. And don't worry about the results. Okay. So that being said, now what I want to share with you is this passage. And I might go a little over, but I'm not going to put it off for another week. So, many people who cultivate really sincerely, that's not it, but that's okay. You can look at that while you listen. People who cultivate sincerely, many famous monks and nuns, when they encounter this, they get confused. Or, because they're not clear at the beginning, I want to get enlightened, I want to be a good person, but I also want to have spiritual accomplishments or powers or so forth. It's there. It's in the background somehow. It's like a little really hidden. And how do you know it's there? It's because when something happens, you go, wow, do you feel that? You're inside. You may not be saying anything. You're sitting in the meditation session, and all of a sudden some energy flows through you. Okay? Or you go at the top of your head. You go, wow, man. You see that? It's like, I'm a Buddha. No. That response means you were looking for it. You wanted it. Okay? So I'm just saying, it's there, it's hidden, it's very subtle if you don't recognize it. So what I want to share with you is this part tonight. This is from Xu Yun, and Xu Yun's name is Empty Cloud. Okay? Anybody know his times? 1840 to 1959. What? 1840 to 1959. Now, he attributed much of his health and long life to the meditation practice, by the way. I'm not enticing you. But I'm just saying, 1840 to 19, that's 119 years. Okay, Xu Yun, Empty Cloud, is a living legend in his own time, considered one of the great adepts of China. In many ways, his life so mirrored that of Han Shan that we're studying that he acquired the nickname Han Shan Come Again, or Han Shan Returned. Both monks generated a wave of enthusiasm among all classes of people. They followed lives alternating of the hermit life, and worldly engagement, yet all that while lived close to the edge as simple and humble monks. Xu Yun, till the end, lived in a cowshed. They built him this nice monastery, really sort of the condo monastery of the day. And he looked at it and said, I don't have the blessings to live in such a place. I'm much more at ease in my cowshed. And he would live in a cowshed. Now, cowshed means the slats have spaces in between, so the wind and things blow through it. Both shunned publicity and self-glorification. They refused comforts, avoiding fame, devoted themselves to reconstructing temples and monasteries and so forth. Xu Yun preferred to live in a cowshed out of doors rather than indulge himself in even the simple comforts of a monk's quarters. He would often come to a new place with a single walking staff, do his works, and leave with the same staff as his sole possession. Now, my teacher introduced us to another monk of this persuasion who came, landed in New York, had a simple robe, his little bowl, his beads, and from New York he came to the West Coast and he stopped a number of places in between. People piled him with offerings. New clothes, new robes, American clothes, fluffy jackets, 3 or 4 or 6 different hats, fancy beads made of lapis lazuli and all this sort of stuff. And when I saw him off at the airport, when he left, he had a single robe, his beads, and his little bowl. So all that stuff that he got in between, he had just passed on to somebody else. Nothing had changed. Okay, so like all great Chan masters, he laid stress on the non-abiding mind, or the mind that grasps at nothing. This is what I'm getting to. The mind that grasps at nothing gets everything. The mind that grasps at anything gets nothing. What? I'm sorry, that's how. And so I asked my teacher, what will be my attainment? And he said, if you're lucky, you will attain nothing to attain. I was thinking, oh, did I get something or not with that? Okay. Laid stress on this non-grasping mind beyond the reach of conditioned relativities, even as they arise within that mind. By his 35th year, he was already renowned for his meditation skills, living deep in the mountain wild, subsisting on pine needles and mountain stream water. Okay, this is not like ordering out. Pine nuts and needles and spring water. That's it. Occasionally potatoes, because we know this story about the yam he got. His hair and beard grew over a foot in length, and his eyes shone with a piercing radiance that more often than not frightened people. Now, if you've seen his picture at certain times, you'll know what I'm talking about. I don't have a picture to distribute tonight. Maybe he can call one up. But when I saw a real photograph when I was in Asia, one of his disciples gave me a photograph of him. And you look at that face and you are just, you stand still. It's very powerful. His eyes, his presence were penetrating. But I remember these pictures. His hair was a foot long and his nails. This was, one of the cultivations of being in the wilderness that they do. All they're doing is watching their mind, cultivating. They're not paying attention to baths and showers and cutting the nails and hair and stuff like this, right? This is what he did. Now, here's what he says. I'm quoting him, I had many unusual experiences deep in the mountains and marshy land. I was not attacked by tigers and wolves, nor was I bitten by snakes or insects. So this is the wilds. This is wild country, and people disappear. Okay, none of these bothered him. I didn't crave for human sympathy, nor took cooked food normally eaten by people. Lying on the ground with the sky above me, I felt that the myriad things were complete in myself. I experienced a great joy as if there were a deva, a god of the fourth dhyana heavens. As if I were the god of the dhyana heaven. Okay? That's how happy he is in this state. Since I had not even a bowl myself, I experienced boundless freedom from all impediments. Nothing. I was completely free. See, we have the idea that the more we get, the more we'll be happy and free. He's going the opposite. Real freedom consists of not wanting. Thus, my mind was clear and at ease, and my strength grew with each passing day. My eyes and ears became sharp and penetrating. Now, he's talking about the beginning of entering this state. And I walked with rapid steps as if I were flying, just completely light ease. It seemed inexplicable how I came to be such a condition. As there were mountains to stay on and wild herbs to eat, I started wandering from place to place and thus passed the year oblivious of time. Now, he reports other states that he had. Clairvoyance at night, not having to walk around with torches or anything, okay? And leaving his body and so forth. Pretty far out, right? Okay. Not until I came upon an old Chan master, Yang Jing, on the Hua Ding peak of Tiantai, did I get, he says, correction for my weak spot. That's the words he used, correction for my weak spot. What do you think his weak spot is? You're thinking, wow, this guy's really strong. What's his weak spot? Why would it need to be corrected? This correction was based on the Sharanga Sutra. Okay? So the old master asked me, are you a monk, a Taoist, or a layman? He finds him in the mountains. He's wandering. He says, what are you? Are you a monk, Buddhist? Are you a Taoist, or a layperson? A hippie? A monk, I replied. Have you been ordained, he asked. I have received full ordination, I replied. Well, how long have you been in this condition, he asked. As I related my story, he asked, who instructed you to practice this way? You know, down to the bare essentials of food, living out in the cold, having these extrasensory wild experiences. He says, who told you to practice this way? I replied, I did it because the ancients attained enlightenments by such austerities. He asked, you know that the ancients disciplined their bodies, but do you know that they also disciplined their minds? And he further added, as I see it, your current practice, you're like a heretic. You're entirely on the wrong path, and you wasted 10 years of your training. If by staying in a grotto and drinking water from mountain streams you manage to succeed in living 10,000 years, you would only be classed as one of the 10 classes of rishis, immortals, listed in the text, and still be far away from the Tao. So he says, even if you got to be an immortal, big deal, fart. Even if you managed to advance a further step, thus realizing the first fruit, you would only be a self-enlightened fellow. Big deal, a Pratyeka Buddha. If your method merely consists of abstaining from cereals and not even wearing trousers, it's only a quest for the extraordinary. How do you expect such a practice to result in perfect enlightenment? So this old monk, now normally somebody come and say, wow, far out. And I've seen this today. I get things on the web. Somebody saying, oh, did you know in the mountains of Taiwan or someplace there's this person who's blah, 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 blah. And everybody gets excited. I want to go see them. Now you're adding seeking and tansika. I'm going to go see them for what? Well, they'll give me, you see? What are they going to give you? Well, they'll rub my head, or I can drink their water, or if they take a bath, I can drink their bath water. And no, I'm telling you, this is how people think. I was in the jungles of Thailand. There was a monk said to be an arhat, and after he finished lunch, we all got up. We were eating together. We got done, and these people just swarmed like bees, shoving his food that was left over into their mouths, because they thought they would get enlightened eating his leftovers. I'm telling you, this is how it goes if you're seeking outside. He says, thus the master pierced my weak spot right to the core, admitted Shu Yun, and he bowed to the old master and begged him for instruction. With the Sharanga Sutra as his guide, Shuyan cultivated Chan for years. Now, in the 56th year, he apparently broke through with his practice. The details of enlightenment are telling in regards to the importance Surangama teachings had to his attainment. Here, in his own words, he describes what happened during a 12-week meditation retreat. One evening after the set meditation period, I opened my eyes and suddenly perceived a great brightness similar to broad daylight, wherein everything inside and outside the monastery was discernible to me. Through the wall, I saw the monk in charge of lamps and incense urinating outside, the guest monk in the latrine far away, boats plying up and down the river with trees on both of its banks. All were clearly seen at night through the wall. And his response? Just go back to sit. Because he had studied the Shurangama, now he knew. The next morning I asked the incense monk, the guest monk, about this, and they both confirmed that what I had seen the previous night. Now, here's the line that's important. Knowing that this experience was only a temporary state I had attained, I did not pay undue regard to its strangeness. And he went back to his meditation, continued, and that was the next few days that he had his great understanding. Okay? So I'm sharing this with you to show you that even though this is part of and can be part of spiritual practice, and some of you may have had experiences like this, the important thing from this teaching is to put them into a frame of perspective to understand them, discern them, and continue on and not be turned by them. So that's why there's an expression, if the demon comes, slay the demon. If the Buddha comes, slay the Buddha. And people say, well, I understand slaying the demon. Why would you slay the Buddha? What it's meaning is, if a negative state or a positive state come, cut them both down. Don't be moved by fear. Don't be moved by fondness. Don't get overexcited. Don't get depressed. Every day, steady, constant, on in your practice, until all states level out. And you get that clarity that comes from an unattached, unbound, liberated mind, not a mind that's wanting. Okay? So this is very important. I didn't want to go past the esoteric and say, oh, it doesn't exist. It does. But how you deal with it, how you understand it, this is the knowledge you need to have, and the knowledge that my teacher gave us. And sure enough, these things will happen, or did happen to us, but we had ballast. We had something to keep us grounded. I'll just read you the passage from the actual Surangama. Okay? This is sort of the standard refrain. What the Shurangama text does, this is the Sharanga Sutra, and it's one that has been used for many, many centuries by cultivators of meditation practice to give them the tools they need to have good, solid, steady practice in their meditation and not go up and down all over the place. And it actually describes in the end states that can occur. Okay, I'm using the word states or experiences, far out experiences that can occur. And when you read these, you go, whoa, wow, that could happen and that could happen. I mean, we're talking about some pretty far out stuff that can happen. And every time, and there's 50 states that are associated with, why are there 50? Anybody know? Okay, yeah, so what's happening is, from the Buddhist point of view, we are a composite of body and mind. Body and then mind. The mind has 4 elements to it. The body's just the physical. So the body's the physical, and then there's feelings. What's next? Cognition, the cognitive faculties. Then something called the habitual deep tendencies, almost like the unconscious in a sense of habitual leanings called samskara. And finally, consciousness. So those 4, feelings, cognitive, samskara, habitual, and some people call it autonomic, and then consciousness itself is the mind. And what the Buddha is saying, those are 5, and there's 10 states associated with breaking through those as you move in your meditation practice so that you are able to penetrate through the physical, the mental, and so on and so forth. That's why there's 50. So what the Buddha says in this refrain here, I'll read you. When and if one of these states arises, and this is after a description of one of those states, that most of us would go, whoa, far out. He says, what the practitioner, the meditator, has gained is temporary. It does not indicate that he or she has become a sage. there's nothing unwholesome about the state unless he or she thinks that now I'm a sage. If you don't think you're a sage, you won't be open to a host of deviant influences, and you will progress and move on accordingly. So Shu Yun read this, then changed his attitude, then had these incredible states, and just saw them as, yeah, and therefore was able to make a real breakthrough in his practice. So I wanted to frame this a little bit tonight for you to understand none of this may happen. Okay? You may not have any states. That's okay. It's good. But if they do come, this will help you to discern and see what's going on. Any questions on this? I'm sure you'll have questions that may come up. And I didn't want to get so deep at the beginning with you, but I didn't want to go past this because he's hitting on a point that many people get caught up on when they practice, which is this seeking for something special, something extraordinary, with the hope that this will give them some kind of extra powers and so on and so forth. Good enough tonight? Sorry I went a little bit over, but questions? Yes? This one? That's the Surangama. Yeah, this is interesting. This was a series, an anthology or a series of essays put together by contemplatives from the Catholic Christian tradition as well as from the Asian traditions. There was a gathering of contemplatives some years ago, and they all presented from Hindu, Taoist, Confucian, Buddhist, Christian. Some of you familiar with, say, the Christian contemplatives you know about, like Thomas Merton? You ever hear? Right. So we all gathered, I was there too, we all gathered at this, and everybody shared this. What was interesting is the contemplative monks on the Christian side saying, when they heard about the Sharanga, they said, yeah, we got our own text too, and they're as far out, and we are properly trained to have discernment here as well. So those monks that go into the desert and have all these experiences too. Only in the 60s did this sort of stop. 1960s. We had no discernment in the 60s. Any of you know the works of Carlos Castaneda? You familiar with that? The Yaqui way of knowledge? Right. So with a little marijuana and whatnot, people would get really stoned and then have these kind of experiences and work them into a sort of sense of a spiritual path. I had friends who went down to South America and got really ripped off on certain stuff. People that were going to Mexico to take, where I grew up, it was mushrooms. No, peyote. So I grew up near American Indians that used peyote. These are called entheogens. So there was a lot of that going on in the 60s, and apparently still is going on. Maybe some of you here tonight going, wow, that lecture was really far out, man. Did you see him floating around? So these are, in both traditions, the first level of discernment is you don't lean on these kinds of things for. And one of the older meditators there, actually from a Christian tradition, he said, he was in his 90s. He said, I have known many people who have gone from hallucinogenic drugs to meditation. So he says, I know nobody who's gone from meditation to hallucinogenic drugs. Which I thought was an interesting insight. In other words, whatever it could have been, maybe it sort of gave you an experience that consciousness was really powerful in something else. Once you learned meditation and the discipline of doing meditation, then you realized this was the highest form of mental exercise. But he said, I don't know of anybody who got into their meditation deeply who then was lured into hallucinogenics. So anyhow, much to share, much to talk about, but that's it for tonight. Announcements?
Let's see. We have roundtable next Thursday, February 7th. And what else? Chinese New Year's coming up here, I think on February 10th. February 10th, so we'll have some activities here on Sunday starting from 9 a.m. Not sure. Oh, tomorrow? No, there will be a lecture tomorrow as normal. So the Saturday program
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, next week, we'll do the passage I put up there from Mencius, that you thought was tonight. Say again?